am glad. I am glad. I am glad.
I am glad that you chose to stop by and watch my video today. But if you're new to my channel, then welcome, hello, I'm glad you're here. I'm Matthew, and today I wanted to discuss with you some movies that I have been watching during this quarantine season and whether or not I recommend them. So all of this time at home has been great for watching and binging TV shows, movies, and whatnot. But if you haven't seen any of these, then you might want to click away from the video and save it for later, because I might be sneaking a spoiler or two into these recommendations that I'm about to give. Okay, so first on the list is Fair Game. I would put this under It's Fine. So this movie is essentially set to be in 2003, and it's about the CIA operative who has her actual name, real name, leaked by the government because her husband actually wrote an article kind of going against the Bush administration on whether or not they should have gone to war. He didn't think it was justified. I would say it's fine, because who doesn't enjoy a movie exposing what our wonderful government does to its people whenever we try to expose the government for doing the shady things that it does? Gonna leave that there. Next on the list is Robot and Frank. This movie I would probably have to say no. So this movie is about this older man who has a son that gifts him this butler caregiver robot, and so he doesn't really receive it very well, which kind of gave me iRobot vibes, because it's like Will Smith wasn't a big fan of robots himself either in that movie, and so he was a little bit against it. But then he warms up to it and they become this heist team. So as an ex-jewel thief, he teaches this robot how to break in and enter. Overall, it's a cute movie, but I didn't really care for it. You could tell it was a low-budget film, which, I mean, that's fine. There are some great low-budget films, but it just wasn't for me. I didn't feel like there was a lot of character development, and I just found too many scenes to be annoying and somewhat unnecessary, so it didn't really leave the best impression for me. So next we have The Hustle. I'm gonna go ahead and move that up here to watch again. I love this movie. I love Rebel Wilson, I love Anne Hathaway, so automatically from that duo, I loved the movie before I even saw it, but I will say that it was not their best movie for either one of them, and because of it being the two of them put together in one movie, I feel like there's no explanation needed for this. I mean, just go watch the movie. It's great. It's entertaining all the way through and had me laughing my head off. So the next one down here on our list is Parasite. This movie definitely takes the cake on the whole suspenseful thriller movie that I've watched out of all of the other ones I've watched through the quarantine season. This movie is kind of like a hustling movie similar to the last movie, in the sense of there's this boy who pretends to be an English tutor for this rich family, and he's from a poor family. And what ends up happening is, as he's pretending to be a tutor, his family comes up with this plan to get both his parents and his sister also hired by the same family without them knowing that they're hiring an entire family to work for them. There is this mention in the movie about the little boy in the rich family had this traumatic experience, and that's because there was someone living in the basement, but they didn't know that at the time. And so I have to say, the creepiest scene out of the whole movie, if you've seen it, you know what I'm talking about, is when the guy from living underneath the house is going up. I guess it's during the night where he goes to the kitchen to eat, but the little kid was eating a cake on the floor, but he saw these eyes like just coming above the floor from the basement. Oh, and I get chills just thinking about it, but that gave me so many chills during that movie. I would say overall this is a great movie, and I really like it because it's so interesting. You don't have, I can't think of another movie anyway where you have this type of storyline. It's just crazy. It sounds crazy, I know. Just go watch it. Really, just go watch it. So next on the list is Drillbit Taylor, and for this movie, I would have to say don't waste your time. While this movie has Owen Wilson in it, I feel like it's always a hit or miss with him and his movies. And this one definitely was a miss for me. It's cute because these three boys are getting bullied in school and getting harassed, and so they think of this idea to hire a bodyguard, and they end up hiring this guy who Owen Wilson plays. Is a homeless guy, and they don't know he's homeless. But then, as you can imagine, there's a conflict at the end where they find out he's homeless because one of the kids' houses gets robbed, and then he tries to fight for their trust back because he cares for them and they've become friends and all this, and happy ending and whatnot. You know how those storylines go, they're just a little too cliche for me and stupid, but not in the good comedy way. Everything seemed a little bit forced in this movie, especially the jokes and whatnot. I feel like they just tried too hard to make it funny, so I wouldn't really recommend this movie. Okay, so next we have The Lodge. OMG. Okay, so I'm gonna put this in the It's Fine category, and I just watched this a couple of days ago. So this one is good for a suspenseful movie. If you love suspense, I love suspense, thrill, horror, things of that nature. I don't know what it is, something about getting anxiety from a movie. I love it, but then I have so much anxiety in my actual life that I hate it, so I don't know what that love-hate relationship is. But this movie, it's also one of those movies where you have to wait until the last 15 to 20 minutes to really understand what has been going on for like the past 80 minutes, because there are so many cuts, you're not really sure what the heck is going on, and then in the last 15 to 20 minutes you're like, oh, okay, so that makes sense. So it's definitely one of those movies where going back and rewatching it, you'll probably catch up a lot more than you did the first time watching it through. Essentially, it's about this family that's broken up because these kids' parents are in a pending divorce, and the mom kind of refuses to believe that her marriage is over and believes there's a chance to get back with the ex-husband, and then that future ex-husband ends up telling her, hey, we need to sign the papers because I want to get remarried. Like, okay. But what ends up happening is after he tells her that, she goes home and commits suicide. So the kids blame the new wife for their mother's death. Ooh, you know where this is going. And so when they go on a vacation, they go to a lodge, and the kids come up with this whole plot to get revenge on this woman because the dad has to go out for a couple of days for work. And so now that she's in charge, the kids are like, okay, we're gonna get her. What they don't know is that this woman is already mental and unstable. She is taking medication, and she hasn't even told her husband that she takes medication, but she was apparently in this religious cult, and she was like the only survivor of a mass suicide that happened. And what the kids do essentially is they promote this mental breakdown where they end up making her believe that they've already died. I know this sounds crazy, but they make her think that she's already dead. And so what happens, because they take her medication from her, and so she just breaks down entirely, and when the dad returns, she ends up shooting the dad. So the kids essentially now, it's their fault that their dad died in a sense, not that they shot the dad. It's just a whole cluster, you know what. And the last clip of the movie is with the gun that she used to kill the dad laid on the table with 2 bullets. So it's her and the 2 kids. So it's kind of like what happens, because boom, that's the end of the movie. Ugh, like I hate that so much that they ended it that way, but I wanted to put it under It's Fine because I just felt like they don't really explain some of the things that happen in the movie very well. Okay, so next on the list is Crawl. So I've already rewatched Crawl before. I'm gonna say that this one is also fine. I love suspense and thrill, like I mentioned, and I really feel like this movie delivers on that a lot, but it isn't quite my favorite. So if you like the idea of people in their house being overtaken by a swarm of alligators coming into their house, and they're trying to make it from the crawl space to the roof of their house without getting eaten, then this video is for you. Okay, so next on the list is Knives Out. This is hands down the best movie I have watched during my quarantine season. I cannot stress to you how wonderful this movie is. I love it on so many levels. If you love a good mystery movie, this is the one for you. It's basically like a Clue mystery where there is this super rich white dude. He ends up getting killed. Is he killed? Is he not? What happens? Not gonna say. But something happens to him, and he ends up leaving his entire fortune and inheritance to his caregiver, who wasn't even a relative in his family. So his family is going nuts trying to figure out, why did he do this? Like, we don't get anything, we're mad. We're gonna hire an investigator to figure out what happened, because if we find out there's foul play or something, then that means we get the money back. I don't really want to throw any spoilers in from this movie because I really want you to go check it out, and the ending is phenomenal. I love this movie so much. I cannot say that enough. So that definitely gets in the watch again list. Next on the list is 7500. No, absolutely not. Terrible movie. Would not recommend. This was a low budget film, which is fine. Again, not throwing low budget films under the bus or anything like that, but I don't like that the whole movie took place in the cockpit and that was it. Like, that's all you get to see is just that little cockpit, and I'm not really dissing it so much for that because it can be well done. I love the movie with Ryan Reynolds, Buried Alive, where the whole movie takes place in a coffin, like an even smaller space. But the way they executed it is much better than this film. This film, I feel like there just wasn't much to it. It was your typical hijackers are on a plane, yada yada yada. They're trying to get into the cockpit. They end up getting into the cockpit, but the pilot somehow takes control of it again, and everyone lives happily ever after he lands the plane. So it's kind of just like, meh. The next one on the list is Last One Laughing, and this one is really hard for me because personally, like I said, I love Rebel Wilson, but I have to put this TV show and Don't Waste Your Time. But I will say, unless you have time to waste. So that's the difference with this one. Because if you do have time to waste and you want to watch something that's kind of funny, then yes, go for it. This is a TV game show essentially where 10 comedians come in to this room, and during an allotted amount of time, they cannot laugh or smile, but they have to actively be doing pranks, telling jokes, trying to get the other comedians to laugh, and then the last one who doesn't laugh ends up winning 100K, which is pretty nice. You can tell it's a new show, which is one of the issues I had with it, and the main thing from that is that the rules are very gray. And I feel like they need to be a little more black and white because some of the eliminations they made were questionable because it felt like some things they were stricter on for some people as opposed to other people. I don't know, it just didn't feel right to me. And honestly, I didn't really laugh that much. There were a ton of things to watch, like there were a ton of things going on. I will say it's entertaining, but I didn't find it that funny personally. However, when I did laugh, I laughed pretty hard. So next on my list is Dirty 30. And if you have not seen this movie, go watch this movie. I am putting it in the watch again list. And this movie I think I like a lot because it kind of reminds me of Sisters with Tina Fey and Amy Poehler. If you haven't seen that movie, that's one of my favorite movies. You have to go watch that. In this movie, you have a 30-year-old who kind of finds out she doesn't really have a lot of people who want to be around her. She gets this letter that she wrote herself from when she was 16 years old and realizes she hasn't achieved any of the things that she hoped to have achieved by the time she was 30. And so she's like, I don't want a birthday party, but then her friends are like, let's throw you a party. So it's kind of like the same thing with Sisters where Tina Fey's like, let's party. Amy Poehler's like, no. But then she changes her mind just like Amy Poehler does. And then the party is kind of like a throwback with all her high school friends, which again is like Sisters. So it's a lot of mirroring between those two movies. And I think that's why I like it so much. But I will say Sisters is better for sure. But this was a really funny movie, and if you're in a bad mood or need a nice laugh or something, go check it out, watch it. I do recommend this movie. It'll lighten your spirits up a little bit. So the next one is Hannibal, which is also a TV show. And if you have not heard of it, oh my goodness, wow. Go check it out. I love this TV show in a sick way, I know, whatever. I binged on these 3 seasons like they were hotcakes. I mean, I watched all 3 seasons, I think, in like a week, maybe a week and a half. Sorry, not sorry. It's basically about a guy who eats people, but he always gets away with the crimes because he has an in with the FBI. I really don't want to spoil this one for you, so you just have to go check it out. But it sounds weird, but I promise it is a super awesome one. So I would definitely put this one in the watch again. Next one is My Spy. I would put this one in the just fine, and I've actually already watched it again since I first watched it. It's basically about this girl who finds out that she and her mom are being surveillanced by these undercover ops, and she uses this to blackmail them into helping her make new friends at school and to take her to parties and things of that nature. And And of course, from this, the agent starts to care about the girl and develops feelings for her mom, and it becomes a love story type thing. Happy ending, happily ever after, all that good stuff. And so it's a really cute movie, and it is funny. It has humor in it for sure. It isn't necessarily one of my favorites, but I would say give it a chance whenever you have the time. Next on the list is Vivarium. I don't even know if I'm saying that right. No. Absolutely not. I hated this movie. I would never recommend it at all. This is probably the weirdest and worst movie I've watched during quarantine season, if not my life. I know I'm being a little dramatic on that. The only thing interesting about this movie is trying to figure out what the heck is going on. It doesn't really explain much. So you figure out the why, what's going on, but not the how. And that's what I found so irritating about this movie. It's just crazy stupid. Last on the list, I have Archive. So I wasn't gonna watch this movie, and I swore to myself I wouldn't, but I kind of caved in. And the reason why I didn't want to watch it initially before even seeing a trailer was because I feel like there are so many movies out right now, and even TV shows, about downloading consciousness into machines. That's kind of a hype thing right now. But I caved, and I'm kind of upset that I did, because it really wasn't the best movie ever, though it wasn't bad. So I would have put this movie on the don't waste your time if it weren't for like the last 5 minutes. The last 5 minutes saved it, and so I'm putting it up to the it's fine. There's a huge mind at the very end of this movie. The ending just really gets you. It gets you good, and I don't want to spoil it because that was the only thing that saved this movie for me, so I don't want to mess that up for you if you haven't seen it. But go check that out if you have not watched it, because I would say it's worth the watch. It's fine. It's fine. Will I rewatch it several times? No. So there you have it. These are some of the things that I've been watching during my quarantine season. I hope to build a community out of my YouTube channel, and so I would love to have you be a part of it. My question of the day is, what movie have you seen out of all of these I talked about today, and where would you place it on this list? Comment below to let me know. Thanks again for stopping by, and I would love to hear any ideas for future videos that you may have if you enjoyed this one. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you in the next one. Okay? Bye.